Okay, Mr. Thompson, as the Pelican situation continues, after the meeting with Parliament on Thursday, you experienced the whole event. Um, what's an update? What's the latest on the workers? Were they allowed to go back to work, or has an agreement come when it comes to the workers and the resort and the union?
Well, nothing has happened really. Status quo remains the same. The session of the parliament was just the politicians trying to reach to a consensus by getting a resolution through. However, as you know, and everybody know that wasn't successful. But besides that, we are waiting for the judge decision on the court case which we filed last week. The judge indicated to us that either Wednesday or Friday we will have that decision. In the meantime, the unions on St. Martin, all the unions under the Chamber of Labor Unions, we met, we discussed the Pelican situation, we discussed the labor situation on the island, we discussed matters which affect all of our members and steps to be taken to remedy those matters which affect our members presently. It's important to note that, in our opinion, the non-functioning or the lack of proper functioning of the Office of Mediation and Labor Department in general is causing a lot of concern among all the unions on St. Martin. When there's a labor dispute and you need immediate and prompt action or reaction from the labor office, it's not forthcoming. And well, we already know that there's a lack of trained personnel in dealing with industrial relations and industrial disputes and so on. So the unions, they are planning to hold a meeting with the Minister of Labor and indicate to him our discomfort and the lack of, I would say, cooperation and the need to have a proper functioning labor department in terms of industrial disputes and relationship in general. The Wifol also met with its leadership over the weekend. That is all of our shop stewards and delegates and board members to discuss the current situation with Simpsonbay Resort and other companies where we're having problems similar but not to that extent, and what should be our reaction and how we should be handle those matters now and for the future, because it becomes very evident to us now that labor disputes has to be handled differently. Either that the union is ready and willing to take precise industrial action because negotiation seems to be not working. As a matter of fact, because of the non-function or the lack of proper functioning of a mediation office, employers are now doing things like the old West days. And we don't want to resort to the kind of action which union resorted to in the 30s and in the 60s. We want to operate from the new order of the day, which is social dialogue. But if that's not the case, our resolve is to take the appropriate action to make these employers and government understand that workers' rights has to be respected. And where there isn't the proper legislations, then the parliamentarians has to do their job. The job of a parliamentarian is to make laws, amend laws, introduce new laws. And with this conflicting situation of one of the parliamentarians, Mr. Jules James, who just dismissed over 100 employees and go in parliament and vote against a motion to protect workers, this is a blatant violation of human rights, workers' rights, of our labor laws and a conflict of interest. You cannot serve two masters at one time. He cannot be the general manager to fire people on one hand and be a legislator protecting workers on the other hand. We see clearly that he will not protect workers. So I think the best thing for him to do is to resign from Parliament, allow somebody else from the party to acquire that seat while he remains as general manager. Because as far as we're concerned, he has lost all credibility as a parliamentarian. And that is obvious. So the union, in the next coming days, we continue to re-strategize and plan. St. Martin is changing. The workers are changing. The mood, the mentality, it is going through a process of change. And we have to adapt ourselves to those changes. And the changes is based on current reality and current development.
What about what was said in Parliament by the parliamentarians saying that other companies will be looking at this particular case? One of the main issues right now is that the short-term contract, the eradication of that needs to happen as soon as possible, and the legislation should be put in place as soon as possible. Now, you heard promises by the parliamentarian that as soon as possible, they will be bringing this to the floor so that they can start dialogue, they can start discussions, and so on. But as a union, hearing this for such a long time, how evident do you see this actually happening anytime soon?
Well, you know, the reality is that contracts cannot be eliminated. You must have contracts. You must have short-term contracts. You must have definite contracts for certain types of job. What has to be tackled is the abuse of putting workers on short-term contracts when the job is of a permanent or indefinite nature. And that's what has to be regulated. Now, on the other hand, that is not the bigger concern for workers and the organization. The bigger concern is employers are not even employing workers like they used to on short-term contracts anymore. Employers are going to what is referred to as outsource agencies, employment agencies, to get employees. The bad thing about that, the regrettable thing about that, which the parliamentarians must look at, there are a number of things which affect the worker, even the worker who goes on those short-term contracts. One is that the company who employ those persons as casual or part-time or outsourced workers will not allow them to work more than 3 days at a particular workplace. Because if they do, the company will the employer will acquire a certain social and legal status. SVB covers an employee if they work for more than 3 days. So if an employer works less than 2 days, he might or might not pay wage tax, but definitely he will not pay any SVB premiums because he doesn't meet the SVB requirement for premium to be paid for health, sickness purpose. So the company that has a permanent job and using these outsourced companies are actually robbing the country from revenue that the country needs. They are exploiting the worker so that the worker doesn't gain his social benefits by paying for them. Number 3 is that the solidarity which the SVB is based on is being eroded because we who are working pay for those who have retired. And if you don't have that income coming in by people who are employed within the system, then you are jeopardizing the pensioners, those who will be going on pension and those who are on pension, you'll be jeopardizing the revenue, the income that's supposed to be at the disposal of those who will receive them. So, tackling the short-term contract in Parliament, they will also have to tackle the legality of employment agencies. According to the ILO and labor standards, an ILO convention ratified by the Netherlands and the Antilles when it was then, outsourced companies or private employment agencies should not have employees as their permanent employees and outsourcing them. They should only be as a go-between if a company need employees on a short-term basis to do a particular job, or to have what you call an extraordinary assignment, then they can use those employment agencies or outsourced companies to help find an employee on quick or short notice. But the way how it is done here in St. Martin is an exploitation of workers. Workers have been exploited, and the company that has the job is depriving society from what society needs to obtain through having people work and work properly. The ILO refers to it as decent work. Mm-hmm. Everybody should have a decent job where he earn a decent living to take care of his family, to take care of himself, his commitment, and his or her obligation. So, these companies are violating this ILO convention on decent work. The parliamentarians has to know that. They have to get to work, do research, make amendment to laws, ratify international treaties and conventions to make St. Martin the society as it should be, as an independent, as a new nation, as a country on its own. But what they're doing, I would say they're playing games and don't understand their role and function. And that's why I said you can't have somebody like Mr. James in Parliament. A parliamentarian job is a 24/7 job. A general manager job is a 24/7 job. There's only one 24/7. There's no two 24/7. So how can you have two functions 24/7, 24/7? That's impossible. Conflict of interest. You will either do a good job one way, and he's doing a good job in dismissing workers, and doing a bad job in representing the same workers as he should. So the union will take and will plan carefully and properly and execute the right industrial action at the appropriate time.